I told my entitled grandmother is too little too late for a grandmother-granddaughter relationship. I, 26 female at the time in 2021, have only a living paternal grandmother, 90 female. Growing up I tried to bond and form any form of emotional connection, but it only caused me to not be related to her by blood. I would get compared to her favorite grandchildren. She would constantly abuse me emotionally, told me constantly that I was the black sheep of the family, and told me I wasn't going to succeed in life, which is why I tried to live myself, because she motivated them most of the time. The last straw for me was when my older brother died. He was 25 male, and told my grieving parents that, another filthy soul out of this world. My brother was an innocent soul that was killed off for only eating in a fast food restaurant, and I snapped at her, telling her, the day your funeral comes I'll probably wear the brightest red dress I have in my closet, because I'll never mourn your loss, on the contrary I'll celebrate when that happens. This happened in 2014. Since then, at every family event, I would avoid her or pretend she doesn't exist. Hell, I would even skip going to her birthday parties. So last November she got sick, and she wanted all her children and grandchildren to take care of her in the hospital, since her favorite daughter, my aunt, 52 female, and her favorite grandchildren, 33 female, 31 male and 25 female, can't do it. She said this to my dad over the phone, and I told her, sorry, but my grandparents died in 2004 and 2012, and I don't have any other grandparents since I am not a granddaughter to my last living grandparent. She started to cry, more like manipulate, and told me that I am her granddaughter and this could be a good moment to bond and mend our relationship. I said to her, now I am your granddaughter. I needed you for 26 years, but in those 26 years you broke me emotionally, and I can't since I study and work, plus there is no relationship to save. I hung up for my father before she could say anything. I've been told I am a horrible human being for what I've said to her, but I don't feel sorry at all for her. I mean, she dug her own grave, now she can go and lie in it for all I care. That's karma for you. I'm in the ER waiting room and an entitled mom comes in with her deathly ill child that's fast asleep in her arms. I'm wearing a tank top and have a Spirited Away themed piece on my upper arm. I've been here for 2 hours already. Entitled mom keeps looking my way, huffing, dramatic sighs, and dirty looks. I have no interest in engaging, so I continue to ignore her. Finally she stops a nurse and says, you need to tell that person to cover that awful, offensive tattoo. Nurse gives a blank stare. Entitled mom continues, it's scaring my child. He's traumatized. Nurse looks at me. I meet her gaze out of the corner of my eye. She looks down at entitled mom and tells her to wait outside or in her car if she had a problem. Entitled mom keeps saying how traumatized her child is. She's woken him now from her yelling. She tells security that I need to move or cover up my horrific arm or she's going to call the cops for indecent exposure. At this point everyone is fed up. Security tells her to quit down and take a seat or leave. Final warning. At this point I'm laughing. Long story short, she tried to call the cops. An officer was already here. He poked his head in to look at me, then walked back out. Said something to her and she left screaming bloody murder about indecent exposure to my poor child. I'm still currently in the waiting room. My 22F cousin, 22F, and her family have a beautiful property. Her mom would babysit me during the summers, so I basically grew up there. There are 3 houses with all of her dad's close family living there, which surrounds a big pond. There is a small boat dock, a tennis court and a pavilion. It's surrounded by forest except for the entrance. It is a totally private property, which means that they have big signs at the front of the entrance that says, no trespassing. There is also another street sign halfway down the road that says, no trespassing. Her and her family get really annoyed when random people come walking down their property and just ignore the signs. To get to the property, you have to go down a sorta long road that goes past a few buildings. When you first turn into the road there is a Wawa. Americans who live in NJ, PA, DE, MD, or VA, let me know if you know what that is. It's a deli shop / convenience store that has amazing food and coffee, a small strip mall and an apartment complex. I lived in that complex for about a year, which is when this took place. Sorry about the long description, I just hope that this will give you a good enough picture of the area. Now on to the story. When I moved into that apartment complex, I asked my cousin if I could walk my dog around her property. She of course gave me permission. One day after I was done walking my dog around the pond, I was leaving through the front gates, which again had the NT signs. I saw this random woman walking with her young daughter down towards the entrance, who I have never seen before. I politely asked her if she knew the family who lived there, and she said no. I then pointed at the big sign and I said, "Sorry, it says no trespassing." She then gave me an annoyed face and said, "Well, you were just on their property," and I replied, "Yes, I was, and I know the family. I am related to them and they gave me permission to go down there." She said, "Well, my daughter wants to go down there, are you saying that she can't explore?" I replied, "If it means that you are trespassing, then yes, I am saying that you and your daughter can't go exploring there." She finally gave out a big, annoyed huff and turned to her daughter and said, in a very rude tone, "Sorry honey, this lady won't let us go down there," and they finally turned around and started walking back. I felt like it would be awkward if I started to walk behind them back to my apartment, so I turned around and just walked my dog around the pond one more time and then left after that. The next day I was with my cousin and I told her about the entitled mom and she thanked me. She said how annoyed she gets when random people show up. I can relate because I also have a property with no trespassing signs, yet people still walk down it. Honestly, it's probably the most ignored street sign in America. My parents brought a new partner into our home without even asking me. Sorry, this one might be kinda weird. So for like 6 months my parents have been hanging out with this young woman, Brittany. She's 28, I think. She works as a nurse at the same hospital as my parents. They'd invite her for dinners and stuff like that. I liked her at first. My mom really likes her and sometimes says I should be more like her. Brittany once offered me pot and OFC, I said yes. But then she ratted me out to my mom. Brittany said she saw me smoking it in my room and was worried for me. My mom believed her OFC. That's all to say that I've got good reason to not like Brittany. My parents started hanging out late with Brittany. And then one morning during summer I saw Brittany leaving my parents' bedroom. My parents had been at work for hours by then and she looked like she had just gotten up. Then about 2 months ago, she started staying over often. My parents said she was staying to help them with work. Then one night I walked into my parents' bedroom and Brittany was in the bed with my dad. I was really upset, but I didn't say anything at first because my dad promised he would explain it. After a week I snitched on him to mom. But my mom knew what was going on. She and dad explained that Brittany was a special friend. She said my dad wasn't cheating because they were sharing Brittany, whatever that means. I was weirded out and just tried to move on. Well, unfortunately on Monday, I came home to find Brittany's stuff everywhere. Apparently Brittany is now gonna live with us. Supposedly because rent is just too high and they wanted to help her out. Well, it hasn't even been a week and I'm sick of her being here. I have to share a bathroom with her and she's super nosy. My friend had come over so he could help me in math. Well, that night, Brittany told my parents that she's concerned about me being alone with a boy in my bedroom. My parents work late so they never knew he was coming over. But now thanks to Brittany, we have to stay in the kitchen so she can make sure we don't get up to trouble. My mom doesn't allow me to use tampons, but I'm in cheer and they're a necessity. So my friend gave me some to use whenever. I forgot to leave them in my locker and I guess Brittany found them in my backpack. When I saw her looking at them I flipped my shit. I told her she's not my babysitter and that I wanted her to leave me alone. Brittany got super offended and claimed that I was making her feel unwelcome. She threatened to leave and my parents acted like I was being unreasonable. Like I get it's their house, but I feel like I should have been at least warned about her coming. OFC, she never left and she's back to policing my behavior. My mom got the results back from some testing I had done and must have told Brittany. She told me I'm gonna have to use boric acid suppositories and that she's gonna make sure I keep up with them. I really feel like Brittany being a parent is going too far and that my parents are crazy to think I should just go along with what they're doing. Entitled mother tries to stop high school band from playing during a football game. During my freshman year of high school, I was in the marching band. My school's marching band was absolutely massive, with over 130 people. As a result, the sound that we make is incredibly loud, which is appropriate for a marching band of this size. While the band was sitting in the stands, the entitled mother stormed up to me visibly angry, holding her crying child's hand. Me, can I help you, miss? Can you tell your friends to play quieter? It's hurting my child's ears. Me, we are a marching band. We are supposed to play loud to express ourselves. If you don't like the noise, I suggest you leave. The entitled mother shouts in a very aggressive tone. Play quieter or I will call the police and file a noise complaint. Me, why don't you go speak with our band director? She walks down the stands to the band director and shouts at him to tell us to play quieter. I overheard the conversation and he basically said the same stuff that I did. Clearly getting angrier, she tried to swipe my drumsticks out of my hands, I'm a percussionist BTW, and even tried to stop the marching band from leaving the stands to enter the field to play the halftime show. After the halftime show, I could clearly hear her child screaming, crying. And then a few minutes later, what do you know? The cops are here. She rambles to the cops about how loud we are playing and asks to file a noise complaint. The police then said this. Cop, ma'am, this is a marching band. Marching bands are supposed to be loud. If you do now back down, you will be arrested for disturbing the peace. Entitled mom's face turned pale white. She then walked back to the stands, weeping along with her child. Cop then asked the band director if he would like to press charges, and he sure as hell did. Entitled mom ended up getting a $2,000 fine. To this day, I'm still wondering why she decided to come to a football game if her child hated noise. Entitled mother wants to take car that isn't hers. Never thought I'd have to post on Reddit, but here we are. So my sister got married last year to her husband, who came with an extremely entitled and toxic mother. My sister and her husband moved to another state, while his mother lives an hour away from me. I work full-time and barely have any time for family and friends, so I would rather spend it with them during my free time than my sister's mother-in-law. Now on to the issue. My sister and her husband are coming up next week, and she wants my sister's husband to take my car, so he can drive her to different places. She thinks I need to give them my car, so they can spend time with her and his family, and never wants them to hang out with me. The last time they were here, my sister and brother-in-law took me to another state, and she got mad because they spent one day with me during the 2 weeks they were there. She complains about not having money for Ubers and feeling unsafe, but takes Ubers to bars every single night, leaving her underage kids home alone, and bringing random hookups to the house at night. I would rather not give her my car because I use it for work, and she's lost her license a few times already. I just got this car a few months ago and my sister and BIL agree I shouldn't give it to her. I'm letting my sister and brother-in-law use it a few times while they're here, as long as they pick me up from work. However, she keeps harassing them to take my car. Entitled parents get pissed off because people want to go home. So, about 2 or 3 years ago, this charter school was built in a vacant lot by my house. Note that this area isn't even a high-income area. We're not exactly the slums, but we're not nearly as nice as some of the other areas nearby. Well, despite this, a lot of kids are in this school, and their parents are very entitled. They take up the entire street for a solid hour waiting for their kids to get out of school, while blocking roads and driveways. At the very beginning, nobody could go home because of these entitled pricks, and it wasn't until a fire truck couldn't get through for an emergency that the city did anything about it. And even then, these parents are still very much entitled. My siblings, 10, 8, and 5, and I have almost gotten run over a few times walking from the bus stop. They go to a different school. Hell, sometimes the buses couldn't go through, and these people would ignore the stop sign on the bus that is there to keep kids from getting run over. My family has complained multiple times to the city, but since it's a charter school, there's not much they can, or will, do, and they've complained to the actual school, but they don't listen either. I'm getting so fed up with these parents. My family and neighbors should be able to go home without having to play Frogger IRL every afternoon. One of these days, someone is gonna get hurt, and I really hope it's not one of the kids in my neighborhood. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.